Hello and welcome to another episode of the Roster Reconstruction Podcast. I'll also probably have this running on the Roundball Ramble feed because it's draft stuff, this is general. So welcome to y'all as well. I'm your host, Corbin. Follow me on Twitter at CorbinNBA. And we're going to get right to it. It's draft season, Final Four, all of that. March Madness, that's a better way of saying it. It's done. Very interesting tournament. I mean, it was kind of exciting, but also kind of just came and went. But I have the perfect guest to help break this down for me. You can follow him on Twitter at Pearlstein Aaron, PearlsteinAaron. If you've listened to the Key and POAA Ron, yes, you nailed it. Analytics master, MBA, and FIBA agent consultant, works with no trade clause, sports business class alum. That's what I'm familiar with you from as well. It's Aaron Pearlstein. I've buried the lead too much. Aaron, sir, how are you today?
I'm good, man. I love to, talk with SBC guys, and I always see your work. I'm excited to get into the draft, man.
I really appreciate that, man. Definitely. Yeah, it's funny. I'm like, it's been almost 2 years now since SBC, and it's brought me with you and so many other talented folks. And so definitely, I'll make sure to check out Sports Business Classroom if you're so interested. It's a pretty worthwhile investment. Yes, you are investing
Absolutely.
in the future. So check that out. But yeah, Aaron, I'm excited to talk draft. Let's kind of get into it. Before we do, you obviously do so much in basketball. I mean, like I said, I see your work in No Trade Clause. I'm a subscriber to your newsletter. Can you kind of describe your basketball journey up to this point? Because I think
Absolutely. Yeah. I think just like everyone else at SBC, that I feel like it's more of a, I like basketball, but, I actually want to make it into something. So, all those guys that make the investment go to the Sportsman's Classroom, those are my kind of people. I think that kind of encapsulates what my history is, I'd say. I went from writing at Fansided at 11, 12 years old, as most people. And then, when I got to Tulane, I was a manager for the basketball team and tried to just, absorb everything I could and learn as much as I can. I was always reading the CBA, or, when my friends were playing video games, I was watching film. It was just, just how my life worked. And then, I just started getting in touch with other people, doing a lot of cold emailing, and that got me into the kind of the agency space. And now I'm doing a master's of analytics, as you said, and doing a lot of consulting with agents and client management, scouting reports, analytics, things like that. Definitely not the end. It's not the final path, but it's just, as everyone knows, it's just it's a part of the path. And, I'm definitely proud of the work I've done, and, excited to continue it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to hear that. Like you said, you kind of had this passion, which you described most of us kind of do in a certain respect, but you worked in accordance with that. And that's kind of cool. Like you said, the video games are like, hey, I'm hammering film. I'm doing the analytics. Like, I'm really doing the legwork. And that's the stuff, the behind the scenes stuff that can be a lot, but also can be very beneficial. And so I'm really excited for you, man, always. And you got to please share us more about AP scouting, because I kind of ran into that a little bit, and I was like, oh, cool. And you have G League information. It's like a really comprehensive snapshot of kind of the inner workings of the league, sort of every other week. Describe a little bit better for you, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously it started with a lot of conversations with agents, just seeing, where does a consulting company really fit in? And the one thing I found from that was they have no idea what they're talking about in any shape of the word, anything. They all want short-term profit, and I'm like, I have all this knowledge and I could be doing these projects for you, but I really would rather just show you and educate, in a sense. So I started that weekly newsletter where I show roster spots are open, what the G League situation is, what 10 days were signed, what players have declared, really any kind of tracking metric that I can, I do, because the big thing is if I could educate them in one specific subject, I'm giving better adequate representation to the players. So if I'm able to do that, that's awesome. So that's really where it started. It was kind of just like, all right, I should try and show them what's actually going on. If they could, understand it better and give a better representation, that's perfect.
No, there you go. I like that. That's really cool. And I mean, like I said, I've been on it, and you look and you see roster spaces and recent news. I'm like, listen, I know these cats be on their grind, man, but like, dang. So that's really cool, man. Definitely. We'll share at the end again, just your Twitter to get people to follow you and your work. But a lot going on. Really, really doing great things, man, and happy again to know you and I'll be like, I'll know this guy, big agent. Be like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yep. I talked draft with him. But speaking of that, let's talk some 2023 NBA
Absolutely.
draft. And I'm curious, as somebody like, this is the first, I want to say, in depth draft kind
Mm,
of cycle that I've been involved in terms of scouting and notes and everything. I've,
picked a
of
good one.
course, I appreciate that. Yeah, I followed like the last two, but not maybe from before the season like this one. So, as someone who's probably followed more in your case, I'm curious, kind of what do you think about this draft class as a whole, and how do you think it compares to, let's say, last year's or even the year before,
Mhm.
just in terms of the quality of depth or standouts, however you see fit to compare.
I'd say this one is a pretty unique draft.
Okay.
We got a lot of guys that really, really could make a quick impact. And
Mm,
it's a very deep also. A lot of people like to talk about it kind of being top heavy, but I really think there are a lot of guys that are going to stick around in the league in terms of being a role player or just kind of being a middleman really deep into even the second round.
oh wow.
So I, I think this is a really, really deep draft. I say last year was like not as deep. We definitely had Paolo, Chet, guys that could really make a difference and really run a team, as we saw
Hmm.
Paolo did right away. Um, but this one I just feel like it's kind of a microcosm for the future of the NBA, if that makes sense. It's like you had all these really, really good players, and every year would get better and better. But now we're at the spot where we're getting these 18, 19-year olds that are just so uber athletic and so built for the modern game and not having to change. Like they grew up going for this modern game that we're doing right now.
Hmm.
And it's just, I think it's a very unique draft in that sense because they're just so ready to compete in this specific kind of run and gun, positionless, uber athletic, high above the rim basketball.
That is cool. I definitely like kind of the natural, I guess, change that these new prospects make in the league coming in, where they come in with these NBA ready skills, and not just we're talking about like your normal playing basketball, but the shot creation for bigger sizes, right?
Yep.
Being able to do stuff at guard levels for your big men, or having different versatility across multiple positions. I think that's really interesting. You brought that out, and I'm definitely. I agree with you in terms of the depth. I was surprised going in because at first I'm like, okay, like I'm looking in terms of stars, and we'll kind of get into that in a minute here. But I'm like, okay, like this guy, he could be a good, movement shooter. If he slips
Right.
to mid, late lottery, or this guy can really make an impact as like a potential shot creator. Or I was high on Amani Bates for years as far as a
Yeah.
player, and I was a little bit. I don't want to say I was high on him as like, oh, he's gonna be the next Kevin Durant or anything like that, which the discourse got way too much. I'm glad he didn't get on that
Yeah.
level just because, like, I don't know. But, like, even with him and everything he's gone through and all the noise, I almost feel like in the opposite direction. Maybe for, like, a certain team is like a spark plug offense energy guy, a few minutes here and there and a lot of work to do. Like, he can make impact. So I agree with you on all of that. I think that's really interesting that you still have players that you said will slip, late into the lottery that still look back and go, wow, like, on one hand, how they slip. On the other hand, they're still going to be able to do something here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you see it. Teams are really making big investments to keep late round picks in this draft. Accumulate second round picks
Mm.
outside of they're leveraging the future for this specific draft. So I think that speaks a lot to the volume of the players in this draft.
Absolutely, and it's pretty neat. And I guess kind of going into the depth of the class in terms of like NBA quality rotation players, but how about the superstar list, right? Like, when you go look at this, obviously it's two players at the very top. It's Victor Wembanyama, excuse me, and Scoot Henderson. But do you think this is just a top two class in terms of potential superstars, or do you see another one, two, even three somewhere there potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are obviously guys that are just so unbelievably talented, and I mean, unicorn, I don't know if does really justice.
Alien, I guess, right?
Yeah, really. Scoot, I feel like is one of the closest to a Derek recruit, like back in '08.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
but I really kind of strive away from consensus, and I think my third is very comfortably Cam Whitmore. I
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like
I
it.
love
Okay.
I love his shot creation, and I really think he's just going to come in and be a primary scorer for a team. I think he can score on all three levels. Defend, rebound the ball well, and I see superstar potential. And then I'm gonna have to put Ahmed in there. I think honestly, like I was saying, you go down to even 5, 6, like get Azar in there and get Brandon Miller in there. They're all really ready to really compete and be all-star players. But superstar leading a franchise. I really like Cam Whitmore, which is definitely striving away from what people think.
No, that's a solid like take. I can see it. I like him with more. I think, looking forward, they say I've seen anywhere between 6'5" and 6'7", but like a power wing, probably 6'6", right? I feel like
Yeah,
yeah, in
yeah,
that range.
yeah.
Like, the guy, his jump shot I think is, yeah, serviceable. I think it can even get better, especially, from three. And he probably can have a little more diversification in terms of his dribble, in terms of offense. But the dude gets to the line. The dude plays with force. He's
Yep,
aggressive. He's a beast down there, and defensively has some skills he can use on that side as well. And yeah, I totally can see that. So I'm actually glad you brought him up. We're gonna talk about him a little bit later. I have some wing kind of slash forward players I want to ask you about and get your
absolutely.
preference. So now we have a hint, but that's really cool. Um, but I always ask this question just for evaluators and folks who are looking at the draft. Kind of what is your personal philosophy of like best player available versus team needs? And I asked
Absolutely.
this specifically in how it applies to specific draft class, because you have a team like, let's say, the Mavericks, right? They are just trying to I'm not reserve, but to protect their lottery pick, right? Let's say that they get the third pick, which is great considering where they could be, but also, they're trying to see, who knows what can happen if they get higher. But Victor Scoot off the board. Now you're looking at a player that potentially, let's say in your mind, may or may not be the player you're looking for to, you know, be the perfect piece alongside Luca. And I guess possibly, if whoever they're bringing back, because the Mavericks are a mess. But what do you think about, again, this philosophy of that in your own personal stance, and then how do you think it applies for certain teams that I think we can kind of go down a few that are kind of in that area, but may not want to be in, let's say, 4 to 8.
Right, right. No, I mean, it's going to be an everlasting question in draft philosophy, and it's going to change team by team, especially when you have like a very apparent team need. Um, but I'm a big proponent of best player available. I think especially in this positionless game,
Mm-hmm.
in this game where you see so much roster turnover, and so much patience on rookies. Best player available just makes so much sense. Just knowing someone's going to come in and just produce on an NBA level,
Mm-hmm.
it does so much for you rather than um, just taking someone that, like, if you need a shooting guard, a guy that can slot in and take a shooting guard. You got to put in perspective. So if this is in the first round, you're getting this guy for um, 4 years on a rookie contract. Third year, if it's going well, third year you're going to extend him, so you have at least have him for 7 or 8 years of his career. You see guys like Julius Randle who needed a few more years to compete. It's clear you have to wait a few years for these prospects to really actually groom into what they are. So would you rather try and fit someone into a box of one position you need in 2023, when there's a good chance you have them until 2030, or would you rather the guy that just is the better player. And if he really shows out, you end up turning over your roster to him and surrounding it around him. So that's how I kind of see it. It's just kind of the thing that going back to 2021 with the LaMelo Ball and Wiseman, I was a big proponent that the Warriors should just take in LaMelo there. It
Mm,
just I understand you have a amazing backcourt. I understand Curry, Thompson, but LaMelo was clearly the best player on the board at that point.
mhm.
And, you'll figure it out. You get the talent and figure it out. You end up then, striving to get James Wiseman, and he's off your team in 5 years because, he can't contain a pick and roll. So,
Yep.
so now was that second pick really worth it? What did you like? You just wasted your chance with that second pick. So I'm a big proponent of best player available, unless there's obviously a team need. But I just still don't think that has to do with the draft. I think that has to do with trading and free agency rather. I think the draft is where you try and find talent in any way possible.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. I actually agree with your example of bringing up that 2020 class with, Wiseman and LaMelo, because I was thinking the same thing. At the first, it's like, okay, cool, like Wiseman, and we know this isn't like too quick revisionist history. A couple short years ago, well, like, okay, they say Wiseman's a good prospect, yada yada, but like, does he really fit? You know what I mean? Everyone's like
Right.
offhand, okay, Anthony Edwards can't work, LaMelo can't work, even though LaMelo probably, and as you said, would have been like the perfect fit for this Warriors team in terms of offense that they need. Because you right now have Jordan Poole kind of playing that backup point guard role, but he's really more of the kind of scorer. You want to say primary score off
Yeah.
the bench, ancillary score alongside Clay and Steph, who's like a combo guard. LaMelo would fit that perfectly. You said it.
Yeah.
Wiseman wasn't a fit in theory perfectly anyway, and it didn't work out at all in practice. So yeah, best player available to make that work. But you're right, because covered this position. Okay, doesn't mean he has to play at that position. Doesn't mean that he can't be a starter, a starter level backup player for a couple of years. Like so much. So I agree with you. That's a really good
Yeah.
call. And yeah, especially when this true to form with the recent trade and basically admitting of a miscalculation by the Warriors front office and finally trading James Wiseman and looking at the players they have now and they're good. But if they had a Lamelo right now, they would be even better.
Exactly. And I think, I think it really just people don't realize how long you have a player. That rookie contract is so
Hmm.
valuable. Having a guy on a rookie contract and being able to have a lot more cap flexibility is so valuable. But it's even more valuable if that player can come in and produce in any way possible. And so, you have him for at least 4 years. Like I said, you extend him 7, 8 years. What you're going to need later down the road is not what the team needs this specific offseason.
Mm,
You might need a backup shooting guard, but are you going to need that in 2 years? Are you going to need that in 3 years? And I don't know.
yeah,
So, it's very hard to say we need to take a backup this or a backup that when, you could just, figure that out in free agency, I'd say.
absolutely. And like you said, it's important again, that time. Steph Curry just turned 35. Going back to that analogy, like things might change in 2 years. So I agree. I
Yeah.
think that's an excellent point. And I'm always going back and forth. In fact, I just did a podcast with my friends, Garrett and Josh, and we're talking about like best player available
Mm-hmm.
or fit. And I believe in best player available. And sometimes like, fit too. But like you said, there's one of those things that it's a debate that will continue and
Oh,
always kind of
absolutely.
interesting. And we always have additional exhibits to kind of throw in there. Exhibit B, and it'll be fun. So definitely
Yeah.
appreciate your input on that. But I guess I have a question here. I've seen these players mocked anywhere between 3 and 8, all kind of forward wing kind of players in this position, this league that I think will all make a fit. A potential, not a potential, but a significant. They'll make a significant fit or a significant impact in the first couple of years for sure, in my opinion. But I want to get how you personally rank these players. We already kind of touched on one, but between Cam Whitmore, Brandon Miller, and Jarris Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I try to find all these like 6'6" to
Yeah.
6'9" players, all can shoot the three, bring something on the rebounding end, has some defensive attributes as well. And have all been mocked from like 3 to 7. Like all seem to be definitely in the lottery by most boards that I've looked at.
Yeah. Yeah. I think well, right now, I would say I have it exactly how you said it.
Okay.
So Whitmore, Miller, and then Walker. But, you pick three great guys to really figure out. That's 6'9", 6'7", athletic, can play multiple levels. That's the guys that are sticking in the league. Someone that could play almost, I'd say, 2 through 4. Jarrett's probably, playing the 5 at times. But, I think just Whitmore's ability to get a shot, his own shot, by also being a pest defensively, really just puts him ahead for me. But, I mean, like we were talking about, Brandon Miller, I mean, I see a lot of like Paul George in him, a guy that can really just put up 20 really quickly. You look up in the third quarter and you look and he's got 20 on a 6 of 8 shooting. And I can easily see that. He's lengthy. He's got a huge wingspan. He's showing really good facilitation skills. And then, Jarrett's like, we had to deal with him at Tulane. Obviously he's something else. Really, really a manimal. You think you get him off the backside of a pick and roll. You're at the basket and somehow he's still with you with his wingspan, or and he just blocks the crap out of it. He can space the floor. But I think, like I said, it's not a what can Brandon Miller and Jarris Walker do. It's more of what Cam Whitmore can do to me. Like at this age, yeah. So like from 1 to 5, 6, it's like everyone loves to bash small little tendencies of players when it's like, no, they're gonna be amazing. They're gonna be great. I just think he's gonna be better. So
I like that.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's really cool because you're not like per se knocking a player in their attributes. It's fine. They're a very good player. They're going to make a fit, like you said. Jarris, the flexibility between the 4 and the 5, being able to shoot 3, mid post, all of that. Brandon Miller, again, I like him in Orlando. I like him in Detroit.
Absolutely.
Like, a potential fit of a wing who I think can even kind of learn to show some more on-ball kind of offensive facilitation skills. Like I think he's flashed some pick and roll play, you know what I mean, and has some good reads, and he has this really like one hand sling pass he likes to throw that's really kind of interesting coming off the pick and roll that he also used to like get into his 3. But I think there's more room for growth there. But at the same time, what Cam Whitmore provides to me, I think fits right now in terms of getting a team into the bonus early. You know what I mean? Being relentless,
Absolutely.
being that bowling ball.
That's true.
Yeah, being able to shoot enough to space the floor. Exactly. Like these things, make more of an immediate impact right now because you're immediately putting pressure on the defense in a different way and through a level of physicality that not that you don't see often in the league, but like you can probably count on your hands like the amount of players that like kind of fit that mind coming up. I'm not saying a Giannis in comparison to that. I actually feel like he's more, and I'm not, the only way I'm comparing him in terms of these two players is by their play style, and it's even then rarely, but I think of like Miles Bridges in terms of like when he first, last 2 years, like just immediately like that physicality, that force, and being able to generate those free throws and also being able to shoot the 3 and not being a liability there as well. Yeah, but Cam Whitmore's upside to me is higher. He's doing it younger. You know what I mean? And I think he shoots the ball a little bit better as well. And I also think he has more like dribble moves right now in terms of being able to create his own offense, even though that's definitely a skill set that I think he would need to improve on.
Yeah, I mean, how do you have them ranked?
So I would do kind of the same way, and I felt bad. I mean, I go back and forth between Cam Whitmore and Brandon Miller, but I don't want to judge Brandon Miller off of the tournament because you really can't take a whole prospect's career and put down to 8 games. But for me, what it highlighted, or his struggles rather, I think that inability to create offense, on his own is something that you kind of have to have the next level. It's nice if you are just a good stand still, knockdown shooter, you can do a little bit off ball. That's great. But if you can create your own offense like that, that puts you in a different tier. I think Cam Whitmore's just held back by the lack of kind of collective shooting point guard play in Villanova. Don't think it was very solid for him. Not that he was a great passer either. He had some weaknesses, but he had to do so much on a team that was definitely below the level of his abilities collectively. And I look at that differently than I do for Brandon Miller in Alabama, where I feel like he was able to slot into a role perfectly. And that's great. There's a spot for that for sure. But there's something to be said for someone who's kind of taking on a higher usage and doing it semi-successfully and seeing where that can grow out. And also, I think Cam Whitmore's offense is, I definitely see a higher ceiling to that than Miller's in my mind, at least right now. But also defensively, I like what Whitmore brings. Like, you're not looking at him as a total liability on that, and I either think that's important. For Jarris, I feel bad because there's not really a reason that I have him there except that I like
Right.
Whitmore. Like you said, I like Whitmore and
Yeah,
Miller better.
exactly.
He's a solid player. I think any team that gets him is going to be great. He reminds me, it's kind of funny, but an Isaiah Stewart type guy, except a
Yeah,
much
yeah.
better, more natural shooter from three. I think somebody could be a more consistent defensive player as well. But a good rebounder. Like he could swing the four, could swing the five, maybe the three. I think he's more of a bigger player, not in terms of size and stature, but in terms of the way he plays at his size.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, he has a very safe floor.
Hmm.
You're getting like a 6'8", 6'9" forward that can really do it all. It might not, in terms of potential, or he might fall to 6'7", but I mean, you're still getting an unbelievable player. And I think you hit it on the nose. I think someone like Brandon Miller, it's really going to depend on where he goes.
Hmm.
I'm really seeing in my head. I know Houston, like Jabari Smith. He started off pretty slow. He was having trouble creating his own shot, and then you see him. How he finishes the year. No one wants to talk about that part, but he finished it just really, really efficiently, really well. That you only saw the concerns, no more of the actual the production that he put. But someone like that, it's important where Brandon goes, where the flexibility, the patience they give him. But if he can come in and really, really, just learn and produce, he can be a really, really great player. Like you said, creating his own shot, that would be such a big advancement for him. And I think a lot of people look at the draft just as, they need to be the best player right now for that team.
Hmm.
When in reality, it is so much more of, can this guy end up being a really important player for us?
Hmm.
Can we surround him with the best development team and get him into the weight room and get him into an NBA routine of, you know, eating well, sleeping well, mobile, getting really, really just good NBA minutes under his belt. I keep going back to him, but like Julius Randle, like he got he was with the Lakers, then he ended up signing an offer sheet with the Pelicans.
Hmm.
Lakers didn't match it. He goes to the Pelicans, then ends up a free agent. Knicks offer him not very much out of free agency because he was like, just this is four, and turns
Yeah.
into an All NBA guy shooting 40% from three, and now leading the sixth seed in the East. Um, Sometimes these guys need a few years, and I think you have to understand that there's 18, 19 years olds that are going into, like, I look at it like a factory, like they're going to be pushed and pulled and molded into a player that the team wants, and for good or for bad, but this is not their final form. And
I like that.
there's so much more ahead, not just what they are right now as a freshman in college.
No, I agree with you. Like you look at most players now and what they were back then, from Jason Tatum to Zion to any young-ish player that you see now, like who they are in the NBA. Like you said, it's different. It's a Dragon Ball Z reference in that, that this is even my
Yeah.
final. I love that. So
Yeah.
I definitely like that shout out there. But no, I agree with you. I have one little, I guess, bonus question because we were talking about it in kind of the flow here. But from these three players, what do you think, just in general, is their best team fit? Like I know I mentioned I like Brandon Miller in Orlando. I think that'd be a nice fit alongside,
Yeah.
Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero. But with these three players, like what do you kind of just ideally for your own, what you would look at, or just what you think would be a neat fit?
Yeah, like, just so I would say, like, in terms of like where that goes, those guys fit.
Yeah, yeah. In your opinion, it's
So
interesting.
hard.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It came up, and I'm like, let me just
No,
ask. But
no, absolutely. I'd say, Brandon, I think you hit it on the nose. I think somewhere like Orlando, where you're surrounded by a lot of talent, and
Mhm.
it's not really all on your shoulders. They just would rather you come in and learn. I think that's a really, really good spot for Brandon. Cam, I'd say, whew, I'd love to see him go maybe to Charlotte. I think they just need someone that can come in and just get buckets. And,
That's a good one.
they got a lot of guys, athletic guys that are just not developing right or getting hurt, and they just don't really have an identity. And I think Cam can give that identity. In terms of Jarris, whew, really anywhere in that lottery, I'd say.
Okay.
I think, San Antonio would be interesting. I think that they got a lot more talent than their record showed this year. Someone getting Jarris Walker, just really giving a defensive identity to a team that, needs that at that 4 or 5 level. But really, I could see him producing in any of those places.
Hmm.
Detroit getting him, some team that like someone like Detroit, like you got a lot of talent. Like that goes back to the team need thing. Like let's say, I have a question for you. So let's say
Okay.
Detroit gets the second pick.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, no, I get it. And
Hmm.
this is one of the parts where I'll strive away where I'm like, all right, maybe you don't take Scoot, you
It's
know?
possible. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm torn because I think on the one hand, it's like, okay, if I'm Detroit and let's say I get Scoot, like I'm thinking three things, right? One, if you don't want to keep Scoot, how much value is him? I see right now. How much value is that pick? Is that selection right now in the market? Right. See what you can get.
right.
Maybe that can vault you quicker to playoff contention. I know that Troy Weaver went and like issued an apology to the fans for how bad they played. So obviously, the stove is on. Right. There's a little heat in the kitchen. Like it's getting a little hot in the seat. So we'll see what happens there. So maybe you say, okay, hey. Let's see if we can make several impact players, whatever the case may be, in some package where you get Scoot Henderson, and boom, like there you go. The second thing is like do you maybe you don't take him. Maybe you're like, okay, I like Brandon Miller there, which personally I'm okay like not doing, but like if you are really high on Brandon Miller and his shot creation ability and what he can be, as that wing that fits in, alongside, your Cade Cunningham, your Jaden Ivey, all of those guys, then like absolutely. Or third, like you said, you take him as the best player available. If you think, and I sort of lean this way, that Cade Cunningham is more like a playmaking wing. So then Cade plays the three, but then the problem is between Jaden and Scoot, neither are really great shooters. Like you bringing one of them off the bench, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's a lot going on. And also, even if Cade's a wing, he's more like a Luka Doncic type of wing, or kind of like a Bradley Beal or a guy who, yes, isn't a point guard, but they're going to do a fair bit of handling the ball and doing that facilitation. So, like, Scoot, can you spot up and shoot the corner three? Results are kind of mixed right now, right? That's one of your weaknesses, right? Jaden Ivey, same thing. So you're right. Like there's so much avenues there, and I know I didn't answer the question. I think I would
No,
lean,
but yeah.
yeah, I would lean maybe toward exploring to trade the pick, but even that seems almost crazy, because of how good Scoot is and how maybe listen, Cade's not been available, just injuries, unfortunately, and Jaden Ivey is nice, but I don't think he's that nice that I don't pick Scoot. That's a good
Yeah.
question. That's a good one.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a hard thought. Like,
Hmm.
you invested in your backcourt in the last few years, and now there's an unbelievable player in Scoot that is pretty consensusly, too. But do you take it? He's really just exactly what you've taken in the last 2 years. So it's a tough one. So that's the big thing is there's so much more in the lottery. You have to see where teams end up and things like
Yeah.
that.
No, you're right. The discussion, I mean, we probably go another hour of different avenues because it is so interesting and there's so many different ways to go from there. So I agree. A lot of complexity to that for sure. It's funny from an analyst side and potential agent side, like you're going to see like you see all of that, I'm sure, which is kind of funny.
Right, right, exactly. It's like, yeah, no, it's just there's so many more nuances to just the prospect being a prospect.
Hmm. For sure. For sure. Looking kind of a little bit past, this initial, 6 to 8, are there any players that to you seem to be, I wouldn't say overrated, but maybe they're valued higher than you have them personally?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I'd say a lot of people love, um, like someone like Keontae George. I think he has it.
That's me.
I think he has it. Like I really, really think he has it. And I think he's going to be an unbelievable offensive player. But you have to understand at that 6'4", 6'3" spot, how hard it is to really mesh well with a roster right away.
Mm.
Um, you know, some other guys, like we were talking about, those 6'7", 6'8" guys, like being able to have that size that's so NBA ready right away. But someone like Keontae George, 185 pounds, like that's small. And can he, create those shots and use his body like he did at Baylor? Like, will he be able to do that against a NBA defense? And I see it. Like, I see the offensive potential, and like, absolutely, I would love to be wrong.
Mhm.
But I just think I'm just definitely concerned about the next step, how he's going to develop, because right now, what we've seen from guards like that is in the past few years at that size has been a little underwhelming.
I get you. I get you for sure. I think that I like his shot creation ability. I like the fact that I see him in like overall he can be kind of a combo guard. But unlike another guy who I'm really high on, like a Nick Smith, I like his physical stature a little bit better. Ability
Yeah,
to hold up in that way. Um, I think he definitely has a lot of growth that needs to happen. And you're right, at his size, yeah, to play the role that I envision him in, yeah, has to be a little bit better. I just feel like he could do it, but then again, I'm well, guess what? Last couple weeks of the season, not that this is like indicative of the entire year, but I was huge on Johnny Davis, and that
yeah,
did not work
yeah,
out so well this year. But then the last like month, it hasn't looked too bad. Now, is it because the last month, or is it because he finally like caught on? And sometimes it takes a longer time for these guards to,
exactly, exactly.
I don't know, but no, I'm with you on that for sure. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna put a hot take out there. I am not super big. I mean, they're in my lottery, but the Thompson twins. I
Damn. Okay.
just feel like they bring NBA level athleticism. Absolutely. Their ability to impact the game with playmaking around the floor. Amazing. I don't want to say that the shooting is that big of an issue, but it kind of is for me in terms of like if they come on certain teams right now, like unless they have the ball in their hands pretty much all the times, like they're going to be an issue. And like if you go to Orlando, that's not the best fit for me. I think the ball should be in the hands primarily of a Paulo Banchero and a Franz Wagner. You go to Detroit, I still like Caden Jaden over there. You go to Houston, at least give me Jalen Green. You know what I mean? Like Michael Porter Jr. I don't think he should be a point guard in the first place, but like I would still like Jalen Green to have the ball more and be more of that heliocentric offensive player that I think his ceiling can be. And then if they're not playing off those, if they're not primarily hitting the ball or at best splitting it, what are they doing when they're not? When they're playing off ball, they're shooting. One slightly better. I think it's Asor has been a little bit better than I'm in
Yeah,
that respect,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah,
not by much. And watching some of the overtime league games, like when they're not like the style of play is conducive to how they play, so they have to just hope that they find a team that matches that same style. And there was times when, in my opinion, like teams did not respect their shooting at all, and there were times when I just didn't like they didn't seem like they're making an impact on the court. And I'm
yeah,
like, if you're
yeah.
not doing it
No,
on OT, it's built kind of around you or for you. What's happening next level?
I think it's one of the hardest evaluations the last few years, getting someone that overtime elite like that, with no prior um, guy that came in that from overtime elite and what he looked like, or it's just the first year of the season. So I think it's a very really hard evaluation. I still think that they got a whole lot of potential between them. Like you said, Azur is a little bit of a better shooter. He may be a little bit more disciplined defensively, but it kind of just goes back to what I was saying, like just both being 6'7", 200 pounds. Um, I mean, a team could figure that out. I promise. And they'll find a way to make him an efficient player. And yeah, and I think I would add this is definitely lower, like late first round, but like someone like Colby Jones from Xavier.
Okay.
I've seen him mocked pretty high. I just don't think he's very disciplined defensively, and I think you know I don't really see the ceiling very very high for someone like that. 6'6", mostly plays the three. Uh, Someone that I definitely have mocked lower than many.
I like that. No, I get you. I've seen him mocked in some. Like you said, in that little higher. I'm like, oh, cool. Like you always have a late riser, right? A guy that I have to do some more research on. That's how I call it. And he definitely does seem to be one of those players. But at the same time, like defense is going to be kind of big, especially if your skill set is good offensively, but you are a liability. And then the floor, your upside isn't great on that side as well. Like you better be a heck of an offensive player to kind of mitigate some of that. Um, And I mean, in this day and age, especially with the way that schemes are done to like isolate and kind of seek out that defender and the pick and roll, and it can get real ugly. So I totally get you
Yeah.
there for sure. Looking on from kind of the sleepers and kind of go, I mean, looking from the players who may be a little overranked, let's kind of go to some sleepers. Do you have any that you're like, you know what? Yeah, like we're not maybe collectively as high on this guy, but in like a year or 2 years time, we are going to be like, okay, this was a guy that I knew at least was really going to make the impact he's making.
I'd say Jordan Walsh out of Arkansas. I think he has it. You have to understand his back. Being in high school 5 star,
Hmm.
having to score 30 points a game. Now going to Arkansas and looking and you have Nick Smith, you have Ricky Council, you have Anthony Black. Everyone, there's only one ball on the court, and Musselman needed him to be a lockdown defender. And even though he didn't play a lick of defense in high school, he did it, and now everyone touts him as a 3 and D player. And I think it screams to the versatility of him as a prospect. You're getting a guy that has a good head on his shoulders and did anything for the team to win. Is now touted as a defensive-minded guy. Can obviously huge wingspan, great lateral quickness, but he can also play offensively. And I think it's just being able to change your identity in the span of 5-6 months. It's exactly what a team should want in a prospect. It's mold that you can just, like we were saying, like tug and pick and until he becomes the player that you want and fits your team. So I really, really like Jordan Walsh. I really project him to be a pretty, really impactful player. The second one,
Hmm.
I mean, he's up there, but like Filipowski, I think he's going to be really,
Okay.
really, really good. I think the defensive minded, I think his defense is high. I think he can space the floor. I think he takes efficient shots, and he doesn't really try to do too much on the offensive end. And I think that's what you need in a big man these days. Someone that can guard the pick and roll efficiently, run with you, and fill spaces in the transition, and be able to finish when he has to. So um, those are two just guys that I feel are just safe development picks.
There you go, and I like 30-second development too, because I think that there's definitely room for Filipowski. Wasn't too impressed with him in again, like in the latter half of the year, but as in theory, I mean, a guy who can kind of score inside outside, good rebounder. Like there's always room for like a stretch five in that way, right? And I like how you brought up Jordan Walsh. Like that was funny to me because I was going to ask you, like, are you higher on his offensive upside than you brought up? Like all that he had done, before going to college. And it felt like it was a reverse to me. Like I'm very high on his defensive aptitude and offensive. I'm like, it's weird, but I think it's interesting how I did not know his background to that extent. How you basically take a player who had clearly defined strengths and weaknesses and kind of, I don't want to say inverted them because apparently, like you said, his offensive game is still there, but he definitely went and said, okay, let me be this defensive first player to fit the needs of this team because we do have enough offense between Smith and Council and to a lesser extent Black that I could just kind of get in there and Debo Smith, like I can just kind of get in there and fill a role. So yeah, defensively, I'm very impressed with him. Offensively, do you think he can kind of rediscover that kind of assertiveness because he felt very timid to me at times?
Yeah, yeah.
Just throughout the season.
I don't know if he has to though.
Fair
I
enough.
think I bet he could, but I don't know if that like I don't think it's there yet for the NBA game. I think that he's gonna have to work on it. But I see someone like Andre Iguodala, someone like that's not really the position he's playing on the court, but he does so many intangibles where you need to have him on the court. I
Mm,
remember those final games where they were leaving Iguodala open from three, but he hit it and it ended up winning Finals MVP. But just being a guy that could just be like a utility player that could do everything is just so imperative. And you know, so many teams. It's just the NBA is so talented right now, and every team has someone that can go and get 20, 25 points. And I think someone like Jordan Walsh that maybe doesn't need to do that to actually be efficient or be a productive player is important.
That's fair. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you. You're right. I hadn't even thought like, hey, you're not going to be, like, you don't have to be a star offensively, and I get that. But also knowing a role, fitting in it, and being an impact player is very important, and will get you paid. Or like you said, Finals MVP. Shout out to Andre Iguodala. That always. I still look back, and I don't think we'll regret that selection because he did make an impact in that series. But it's always one that I look and like do a double take, and I shouldn't. I mean, you
Yeah,
look at Andre Iguodala, like 18-year vet, All Star, primary option for a bunch of teams, but just at that point in time it was a shock to me. But then again, look at what he did. So I definitely get you there. Aaron, this has been great. I have one last question for you. Asking all
absolutely.
first time guests of this show, but like this mostly roster reconstruction. That's what we look at. Draft, free agency, trade. And so I wanted to ask you, you've been following the NBA for years. What is your favorite trade, free agency signing, or draft pick of all time?
That's a good one.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I know it's
I
interesting because
mean,
uh-huh.
can I have two?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna go first one, 2008. I'm a Bulls fan.
Okay.
Getting 1.8% chance at the first round pick, ending up getting the hometown kid, and then and he's a pretty cool guy.
Hmm.
I obviously it maybe didn't work out exactly how, but Derek is Derek. So I'm always gonna love that one.
Okay.
And then you have to remember I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff,
I love it.
like
Yes,
cap
sir.
stuff. Like I really am a nerd, and like just roster flexibility and how it works. So I have to say I love the Halliburton bonus trade. Just the
Mm.
nuances with the like basketball thought, the nuances that comes with it.
Hmm.
There's just hundreds of different pathways to look at it,
Mm.
and it was just so funny to see people just have a really quick impression of it. Um, when it was really a win-win for both teams, and it just yeah, I don't know the nuances around the trade. In terms of trading away a prospect to a team that could definitely utilize a prospect to a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 8 years that needed to make a push and got the All NBA player and now is the third seed in the West. I don't know. There's things that I feel like I'm always just going back to that trade, just to use it as example or use it as a reason why the Kings are where they are. I think it's just a really really good win-win basketball trade for the
No, I'm
purist.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like you said, the nuance in there, the complexities in there, being able to kind of pick, you can argue for and against for both teams in the long term direction and the immediate success that both have had, or maybe, the development cycle that Indiana's on and, the fit that I mean, not Halliburton, but Sabonis immediately has right now with Fox and how it's a better fit for their timeline or would have been better. There's so much. I agree with you.
Yeah,
Like you said,
yeah,
it's one of those things that if you are that cat nerd, that, aspiring GM, whatever the case may be, that segment of the market, like, that is that stuff is what is hype for you. So I'm with you on that.
absolutely,
That's
absolutely,
cool. I like that you shared those two. I appreciate that. And also I just
of
appreciate you
course,
being on, man. This was a lot of fun.
anytime, absolutely,
Yeah, this is a blast. I appreciate it. Listen, like I like talking draft with you, but also, with that agent experience that you have and just general NBA knowledge. Yeah, I will have to have you on again, sir.
absolutely,
Definitely thank you for
absolutely.
that. Listen, tell the good folks where they can find you and your work and, just things that you'll be up to here as we kind of get into real draft season now, right?
Yeah, I'd say my Twitter is definitely the best place. I add a lot of stuff there, and I show my newsletter and everything there. So that's at Pearlstein Aaron. So Pearlstin and then Aaron.
There it is. Perfect. That's right there. Aaron, it's been a pleasure. You take care, my friend. Thank you again. Like I said, we'll be having you on for sure
Absolutely,
again. Listen, y'all, for roster reconstruction, folks, and my Roundball Ramble guys and gals, we appreciate y'all. Definitely make sure to check out this podcast. Stay up to date with that. We'll have a whole lot of draft stuff coming out. Just really trying to get in on this. And then also we'll do some offseason previews for some of these teams that are eliminated as we kind of look forward into whatever they're looking at the next couple months. But definitely stay tuned for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a very busy couple of months, but an exciting few as well. So we're all set here for Aaron, for myself. We are Frosty. Y'all stay frosty, and I'll talk to y'all real soon. All right, y'all.